Ready to go? Call this meeting then of the City of Salem Legislative Subcommittee to order. Present are Bennett.
Hoy.
Lewis.
And then staff to be identified. So it's almost over, huh, Justin?
Yes.
Well, how'd we do?
About 10 working days.
Okay.
So thanks, Mr. Chair, members of council. Yeah, we're very, very close, and I think we've done pretty well for all the circumstances that we've talked about before, the difficulties of actually being able to see people and have conversations, but we've certainly made do, much like the rest of the state. So I'm pretty pleased with what's going on. So I think today, Mr. Mayor and Council, I will just go through real quick kind of our funding priorities, and then Courtney, you can take over if you want to look at specific status of priority bills. But first, on a personal note, Mr. Mayor, thank you for being there yesterday, and thanks to the council for all your support over the years of the Boys and Girls Club. As folks know, there's a new facility being built out in Northeast Salem on the old Larry Epping property. And as a 20-year board member and a 4-year past president, I'm just really thankful for your support of being at the event and council support for the clubs over the years. It's certainly a high need area, as we know, and we're really looking forward to that project being done. So thank you for indulging me on that. And thank you all for your support. And moving into our legislative update. As we talked about during the last update, we've talked about these ARPA funds, and we talked about the $8 million going to each Senate district, $2 million for each section of the House within that Senate district. We're still waiting for a list to be distributed by LFO. We're keeping an eye out for a funding vehicle. House Bill 5547-1 was heard on Thursday in Ways and Means, but that's a federal fund limitation bill related to non-entitlement communities with populations under 50,000. So we're kind of in flux, waiting to see what's going on with that list. That being said, looking at our funding priorities, our navigation center was enrolled in House Bill 5042, so that's $5 million for the city. DAS has submitted a contract. We've received that, and we're moving forward with that. Did I hear a question?
Nope, I think we're okay.
Excellent. Second, Yaquina Hall is within House Bill 5506. It includes $1.5 million to bring those housing units online. That bill's sitting in Ways and Means. We're hearing that is obviously looking good. Sobering Center, we've put in with a couple of our Salem delegation, trying to get about $1 million to cover the remaining costs for 2 years of operations. Thanks to Representative Raquel Moore Green for submitting that on our behalf. In looking at the community mental health support in House Bill 2417, we know that includes grant funding for local governments to implement mobile crisis response units. That bill is also sitting down in Ways and Means. We've reached out to Representative Teresa Alonso Leon to get more, Representative Tana Sanchez, who's
I thought they were from here.
And we think we're looking good there as well. So with that, Courtney, do you want to talk about any specific, or are there any questions on funding from council?
So
I'd like to take a quick minute just to recognize that we've done really well, which was
really good job. What about this? Tell me a little more about the Sobering Center, where we are on that exactly. I'm not sure I fully grasp it.
We have a Sobering Center pitch that is live, and we've submitted in a couple of different ways. The current most active possibility is through Raquel Moore Green, as Justin was just referencing. It is important to also notice, though, if House Bill 2417, which is the vehicle for mobile crisis response, if that does move forward, it includes a granting opportunity for a Sobering Center as well. So there are a couple different ways this could come to pass. It's nice to have options.
Yeah, really. Well, then is Raquel putting it in under her ask within her $2 million, or How is that being done? And where's the rest of these people?
So Justin can probably speak more specifically to the ask of Raquel Moore Green, but in a chamber briefing last Thursday, they all of our local delegation was on the call, and they were running through their funding priorities for these resources. And I did not hear the Sobering Center specifically on any of those other lists. So Justin, do you want to speak to the vehicle that Representative Moore Green is looking at?
Yeah, Nikki was on the phone with her office, and I don't want to put Nikki on the spot to get on here, but
I spoke with the representative 3 days ago. She has submitted the $1 million request for Sobering Center with LFO.
okay, so
Unaware of
okay, so to relay that, Nikki has spoke with the representative a couple of days ago. She submitted that into LFO. We don't know whether that's ARPA funds or general fund. We're working to find that out. But again, we've done a really good job, our staff has, of supplying the entire Salem delegation with our laundry list of needs and where that was submitted. So we will follow up on that. We've also reached out to other Salem delegation offices and are waiting to get information back on specific requests and where they're sitting and where they're housed. So we will know a little more here, hopefully by this afternoon. And as I mentioned, with only 10 days left, everything's awfully fluid. So I will try to find out more and share that with Courtney. So if anybody from council has specific questions, please get to Courtney and she can get to me really quick.
Please let us know if there's any way we can help advocate for that.
Yeah, this is so important. I got to be honest, I'm really disappointed, not in you, but in the delegation not being more responsive on this. I don't quite understand it. We got all these legislators and the freshman Republican has to pick it up. I'm kind of, I'm sorry.
To her credit, she's been wonderful with outreach to us.
Oh yeah, she's great.
And we have had, Mr. Mayor, we have had conversations with our other representatives and our other senators. I mean, I think there's a little bit of everybody trying to do everything at once going on. So we'll see how it all works out. And again, thanks to the staff, especially Courtney and our executive team in getting that laundry list to everybody. And the willingness of all our Salem delegation to get those in and to coordinate together. And again, it's just been difficult not being in the building, trying to go to each separate office and say, do you have this covered? Do you have this covered? We've had to do more of a shotgun approach, I guess, versus a rifle approach when it comes to some of these funding requests. So
Chris and I were in a meeting yesterday with the county commission, and this issue is this Sobering Center operations money is just, it's just one of those, it'd be nice to have all the vehicles in the world for crisis response. The problem is, where do you take them? And this is one of our at least that's how I caught it, Chris. It's just fundamental to have this Sobering Center in place. So if there's anything we can do to be helpful on this, if you have anything you want us to do, I know both of us have now heard it from other levels of government and other agencies that this is really a pretty bottom line agency for the future of dealing with some of the crisis management that they have to deal with. Okay, well, really good, Justin, very good.
well, and then to finish, Mr. Mayor, before we go on, again, thanks to Nicole in my office for tracking all of this, but a big thanks to all of our staff who their input then will go into this final report that you guys will see over the next month. And the nice thing about that final report is we know the issues that we're going to see in the future. We can then plan because we've already got that input in our system. And then we can plan and be more strategic about knowing what's coming in the short session, knowing what we're going to face in the long session, and having that record and having that final report to work from moving forward with our future legislative agenda, I think it speaks really well to our staff and the work we've been able to do over the last 4 years putting this together. So I'm excited about that. That'll be the next phase after these legislators get out of here in the next 10 days. And then we will shift our focus to whatever opportunities we have during a special session. If we need to make some tweaks or we have some other asks, I know most of that will focus on redistricting, but if we do have tweaks, then we can use this as a nice base to look at that. Also going into the short session in February of 22, we've got this as a base, and then ultimately getting more strategic about the long session coming up in 23. I'm excited about that because we've put in the work, and then it's just a matter of having those conversations and rolling up our sleeves and working with our delegation and our county partners and our folks at the league. And I'm very confident about moving forward. We've had a great session, but now it's time to turn a little bit towards the next session, and we've got a good place to do that. So I'm really excited about that and the opportunities for us in the future. So thanks, Mr. Mayor. Courtney, did you want to hit on any of our priority bills, or does any of our staff have anything that they're hearing on the ground to report today?
I was hoping we could just take a quick minute to answer any of the committee's questions about some of the active bills. Most of the bigger moves are being played out very well in the local media. So you're catching a lot of the big things that are happening, but I just wanted to give the legislative committee an opportunity to ask any questions about follow-up on any of the bills.
Well, the one I think that's I've heard about already this morning is the Boise bill, essentially the sit-lie bill. I continue to understand that as merely codifying the court, and that we are developing all of our strategies around the requirements of that bill, which is we will try to have alternative places for folks that we try to move off sidewalks to other public spaces. Am I understanding the bill correctly?
Let's ask Mark Weinstein to just weigh in a little bit. I know that there might be some changes to some of the things we have in place, but Mark, can you speak generally to, we have until 2023 to be in compliance, just for everyone's information.
I do want to mention too, Mike Dembro, Portland's senator, had a comment on the radio this morning about how this really will finally put the responsibility for homelessness where it belongs, on cities. And I'm listening to this state senator who's new enough to probably not know better, but I'm really kind of appalled by that, Justin. You can share that with the senator. I'm thinking about sending him a letter that just, come on, Mike, wake up. I actually was going to go talk to him. I think it's just silly that they think somehow this is a responsibility the cities. I mean, it's essentially, we haven't done the right thing. Hearing that from the state was very, very discouraging. I'm really disappointed in him. What do you say?
So, Mr. Mayor, in answer to your question, to your first part of your question, is it simply a codification of the Martin v. Boise case and the Grants Pass case? That is an opinion that varies greatly depending on who you are asking that question of. But I will say this to your second question. We have always worked hard, both in the drafting of the proposed ordinances, and I know in council's review of them, in being very in tune with the expectations of the community and making sure that there are alternative resources available to our unsheltered community, and balancing that against what the ordinances we have that in some way regulate camping in our public spaces and sitting, lying, sleeping. I do believe that the ordinances we have are largely comply with the requirements of House Bill 3115. I do know that we do intend on going back and looking at the ordinances again. But at the same time, as this bill was progressing, the Oregon League of Cities, as well as the Oregon Law Center, said that they would be working with cities, if this passed, to come up with sort of their checklist of what they believe would or wouldn't comply with House Bill 3115, possibly even a model ordinance, etc. It'll likely be important to kind of keep our ear open to what they have to say, as they were very active in the development of this bill. And so, but in short answer to your question, our laws as we have them likely comply with this bill, especially in relationship to unattended property and the sit-lie ordinances, because they are limited in location and time. We are going to look a little more closely at the camping ordinance, which is more of a general citywide ordinance. But as Courtney mentioned, we do have until July 2023 to fully implement this, and we will be actively working on that, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Share with the league, we're really, really disappointed they couldn't help us out a little more on this, but oh well. It's not our, guess what is, that's not in our dues package. What else you got? What else, Courtney? What else did they do to us? Anything?
Well, there's quite a bit of housing options pieces that have been coming through. You may have heard a little bit this morning too about some of the housing options, but I've asked Eunice just to be ready. I know housing is of interest to the council and to the legislative committee. And so I asked Eunice just to be ready to talk a little bit about some of the things that have recently passed. Eunice?
Hi, Eunice.
Hi. I just wanted to touch on, I guess, the three major kind of housing related bills that we're tracking. The one that we've talked a lot about before, House Bill 458, is the bill, the middle housing land division bill. That one did pass and has been signed. So we have to actually implement that by June of next year, 2022. So we're starting to figure out how to go about that. Because as you all know, so that maybe don't know, sorry, I shouldn't assume. We're in the process of also implementing House Bill 2001, which would actually allow the middle housing, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, cottage clusters in the single family zone. This bill takes it a step forward and says, if you have middle housing, you can divide that land. So that's just—
Can you say quickly, Eunice, what that does exactly? What are the housing types that then are allowed in single family zones? Just
yeah,
duplex,
sure. So
triplex, quads, what's the—
yeah, 2 family, 3 family, 4 units, townhouses, which are already allowed, and then cottage cluster, which is about 5 to 12 detached, kind of the United Way proposal around a common green. And so the difference between this bill and House Bill 2001 is that you can then divide those properties. So say you build a triplex, 3 units on a lot, that's allowed through House Bill 2001. What this bill says is you can now divide those, even if those specific lots that you're dividing don't meet our standards. So it's a way to promote home ownership after the middle housing essentially is already allowed.
So it essentially changes along with everything else. It does some changes to minimum lot sizes. Is that, do I understand that then?
Right. So you can have
Will
much
we
smaller.
codify that? Will we be able to codify that for people as to what that looks like, or what will we need to?
We'll have to make code changes, yes.
Okay.
So if I could just interject for a quick second, House Bill 2001 is from 2019.
Right.
And you will be, the city council will be having a work session on that on the 21st of June. It's just an introductory kind of a work session, and it'll just be an hour. It's just a quick reminder about what House Bill 2001 was anyway. And it's a chance to catch up on the work that Eunice is leading through the Planning Commission to become compliant with that new law. And then some ideas for incentives to encourage middle housing, which is the second piece of House Bill 2001. So we're clearing out the decks of the responsibilities we have to implement House Bill 2001 from 2019, and then adding on after we get that solid, which we should have time to do based on the rules for 2001, getting that solid, and then looking at the subdividing further. So just it's going to get kind of complicated for some, but you all have lots of experience in this realm, so it should be just easy.
I
No.
hope it doesn't get too entangled with our Salem. I mean, that people get real confused as to what's doing what to where and where they can comment and all that. That does get a little confusing. Yeah, Jim? Did you have?
Yeah, Eunice, I just wanted to make sure, you mentioned, let's say we build a cluster of 3 houses, and then you can go in and separate them for the sake of home ownership. But I can't go to a parcel and divide it into 3 pieces and then build those clusters. I have, that process comes after the houses are already there. So we're not really changing our minimum lot size. We're just adapting to a particular circumstance.
I think we could, as a city, do it at the same time, but I think that we would. It has to be for middle housing, so it can't just be that you want to create smaller lots. So the idea is that if you have a triplex, for example, or 3 separate units on a lot, that specific lot has to meet all of our standards for that triplex, which in Salem would be 5,000 square feet. But you could divide that and go below our minimum lot standard just for middle housing. So instead of saying 4,000 square feet for a single family home, you take that kind of big parcel, 5,000, and you could divide it into much smaller parcels. That's what this bill is letting.
So you can actually do the land
session.
division.
Mhm.
You can do the land division and then build the houses. I thought you had to have the houses built and then divide the land.
I think we have some flexibility there. I can double check.
Okay.
Yeah, it allows for the submission of the land division at the same time as the building permit, but that's up to the city.
Okay.
So we can make that call.
Okay.
Wow, it's going to be interesting. Is there any others we should be aware of?
Yeah, there's 2 other bills related to affordable housing. One is Senate Bill 8, and that was recently in the paper. That's one that would allow affordable housing more broadly across the community. That one's passed the legislature, but it hasn't been signed by the governor. I anticipate it would be.
When you say allow affordable housing, do we have areas we don't allow affordable housing, or is this more of a, you need to include, if it is affordable housing, the zoning or whatever the proposal is gets a different kind of treatment? I'm not sure I understand.
Sure. So in a lot of zones, like some of our commercial zones, for example, we allow multifamily housing, but you have to apply through a conditional use permit, for example. This is saying you have to allow it outright. You can't require a zone change or a conditional use permit. So we'll have to, again, go through our code and make and update it. And then the other one, which just had a work session, is Speaker Kotek's House Bill 2008 that looks specifically at affordable housing that's owned by religious corporations and makes it easier to build those.
Okay. Any questions? Anything else? Eunice, anything else for us? Nope. Are there other issue areas? What happened ultimately with the police? Do we have any changes we're going to be making in our policing section?
Well, Deb Aguilar is here to answer those questions.
Great.
We were primarily
I
just
saw her
tracking
name.
for unfunded mandates was what we were really looking at. So Deb, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, as far as unfunded mandates, there's at least one training component that I know of that requires us to train not only on CPR and first aid, which we already do, but now we have to train on the anatomy and physiology of the throat. So that'll add a little bit to that training component. But most of the other bills that have passed already, we really have either made those changes or are in the process of making those changes. A lot of them are procedural. So really was not a heavy lift on our part as far as what passed through the legislature so far. And
are there substantial training changes, Debbie, that you've run into? I mean, are we going to have sort of remedial training for a lot of officers or anything like that?
I wouldn't say substantial training. We have substantial training responsibilities anyway, just for our continuing education. So it is, at least for especially this one part with learning the anatomy, it's just going to be an extra little chunk that we'll have to add on to our CPR and first aid portion. So we already have a fairly considerable amount of training we have to do every year anyway. So it will be a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be too onerous for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for Debbie? Okay. What else you
The
got?
only other, sorry, if I could just interject, the only other issue that was about the water and the canyon. And
Yeah.
I wondered if we could just have a quick update from Jason Pulley about the status there. I know he's involved and engaged in quite a lot of those planning conversations, regional planning on water. So Jason, would you mind jumping in?
Sure. Just so you're aware, this isn't necessarily running through the legislature, as you know, but the county has released a draft of the master plan for the North Sandy Dam sewer system. They do have a funding request into the state for, I believe, around $40 million to start some of the funding. But the good news here is the draft master plan recommends 2 treatment plants, one for the Mill City Gates area, one for Detroit Idana, 2 separate disposal areas, and both being rapid infiltration basins, so no direct discharge. So 3 basin rule modification is off the table currently. And that was, I think Commissioner Cameron and the rest of the commissioners had promised us that some time ago. So it's nice to see that they kept their word there. The initial price tag right now sits at $98 million for the entire system. So, take that for what you will and see how, and because of the 3 basin rule and the type of disposal they're using, it's probably going to be at least a year or more of groundwater studies before they can even start construction if they had the funds in hand today. So.
And are you being included, Jason, in all of their technical, at least their technical reviews and technical planning that's going on? I mean, have we got a pretty solid seat at the table?
Yes, we do. We had a technical review committee yesterday to discuss the master plan. And we, as I've mentioned before, we've also hired an independent consultant to review the work that's being produced. So we're on top of it.
Yeah, because as I recall, one of the real problems at Mill City has been a groundwater problem and an infiltration, a plume moving toward the river from their existing sort of contained plant. Are we also getting any kind of picture of their operations plan or their governance and operational plan, or will this be, are they sort of trying to localize it now to 2 operation systems? I'm not.
It's still going to be, so they've formed the North Sandy Dam Sewer Authority that's going to be the owner of the system, right? So it'll operate as a special district, board of directors or commission or however, and they're working through setting up their bylaws. The biggest issue they're facing right now is not only the upfront cost, but the operational costs, and trying to get an affordability idea on what those residents would be able to pay, because the O&M cost right now without any reserves being added is about $500,000 a year, and spread out over that customer base is going to be pretty significant.
Yeah, you're talking less than 5,000 people, way less than 5,000 people in that. I don't know how many households, but do they have?
And the other issue is
yeah.
And after the wildfires and the slow to rebuild and the issue that's currently ongoing with the septic, the population estimates are being revised downward because, right, as you can imagine, the move back rate is not going to be 100%.
Oh, geez. And how will that be an early part of this, Jason, that they work their way through the feasibility of an operation system? In terms of the population and the tolerance for taxation up there, which is its own special challenge.
They're working with Portland State on a basically with like an income study, an affordability study to see what the customer base could support.
Okay. And will we see that stuff at some point? Will you see it? Will at some point, will any of that come to council so we understand what's going on with it? Or
we certainly could.
Our wastewater subcommittee or something like that?
Yeah, we certainly could at a point where I think once we get the plans finalized and, and they start moving ahead with design and feasibility, then we could certainly make a presentation to either council or water wastewater task force, whatever is appropriate.
I think if you could, to the wastewater task force, at least somebody who knows what they're looking at and could kind of give us some advice as them to us as peers, and you guys have a chance to organize your thoughts on it. I think it'd be nice to know before this gets too far down the road. It's just a thought. I mean, I understand your workload is your own special problem. I don't
No,
want
that would be completely appropriate. Not a problem at all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the conversation and the discussion. Really, as we talked, the set of this, it's wrapping up quickly and there's a lot coming through. Our next opportunity to visit with you is set for June 25th. And of course, if we need, we would do some communication faster in advance. And if everything wraps more quickly, there's a possibility that we wouldn't be visiting even at that point. So for us as staff, the next steps are really, as Justin was mentioning, kind of taking stock of all that has happened and where or if we need to modify some of the city's positions to get us ready for the next short session and the special session intervening. So as we move forward, we are staff trying to start to position the city for the next round of priorities that we might try to push through for potential funding or other support. So that's where we are. And so you'll either hear from us before June 25th or at June 25th, and then we'll start gearing up for the special session and the short session in terms of building out priorities.
Okay. Any questions? Chris, anything? Okay. Jim? No? All right, I think we're ready to go. And now will this be coming as an information report, kind of where we are now to the council this week, or will we be aiming after the 25th or whatever the sine die is?
I was going to wait till the dust really settled and then do a report out. I have seen in the manager reports to the city council and to the community updates on some of these funding sources. Yeah. And so in particular, I know there's a motion to advance purchase of a navigation center based on our receipt of the funding for the operations. So there is a lot of public conversation already about these funding priorities, and then we'll round out the whole session. Usually we send an information report to the full council in early August, depending on when everything ends.
Okay. Do any of you think we need an interim report to council? Do you feel any compelling need?
I think it would be good to update on our priority bills, maybe not the full scope, but just the priority bills. So
just a short. Yeah, I think I agree. Just with a short report that says, here's where we are, here's some of the variables that are going, just exactly what you told us. It doesn't even need to be a one pager. It's just something quick that just sort of says here where is that what you're thinking of, Chris? Something like that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think, if it's okay with you, we would do that for the last meeting in June, just because this meeting on Monday night is really full. Okay.
No problem.
Great.
The only reason it might be interesting to have something available is because we are going to be doing the city budget, and there are implications built into some of this funding for potential spending, but I think the vagary of it can probably be tolerated by the council, and they can still pass a budget. So
good. I'll draft something based on this conversation today, just hitting the highlights from the conversation that we've had today.
I think that'd be helpful. I do.
Good.
Okay. Great. Anything else? All right, then we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Great work, Justin. Thank you again. You and Courtney have just done a great job for us. And then we know Nicole's doing most of the work, and we want to thank her too. Thank you.
Great work,